Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile. Mike Renner, Kyle Long, JP Acosta. Jam-packed episode for you guys today, obviously with Cutdown Day yesterday. Going to break down all the most notable cuts, our thoughts on it. Going to break down the Adam Thielen trade that just happened. Maybe talk about a little bit about the Micah Parsons rumor that went down last night that set Packers Twitter ablaze.
Bears Twitter.
All of Twitter ablaze. And then we're going to do Super Bowl contenders. JP's got his definitive list of Super Bowl contenders. We're going to go through that and comment on it towards the end. But first, guys, I got a story I got to tell you guys, because during Cutdown Day yesterday, I was looking through the list and I saw a guy's name who was a rookie that I was pretty high on. I had him as a top 100 guy on my board. He got cut. It happens sometimes. I'm not above swinging and missing. But I'm like, damn, I thought he was going to be a little bit better. I didn't expect him to get cut. I knew I was high on him coming out. He was ended up being UDFA. Sometimes that happens. I was high on Ivan Pace. He was top 100 guy for me coming out, ends up UDFA. Turned out good. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. But I'm like, okay, let me go watch this guy. I'm not going to mention his name because of obvious reasons at the end. You'll see. Let me go watch this guy's tape. And I'm watching his tape and I'm like 15 plays in and I'm like, God damn it. Like, yeah, he deserved to be cut. This guy was not looking good. Go through the end of the tape and I'm like, it was so not good that I'm like, I got to go back and watch his college tape. I'm like, was this guy hurt or something? Go back and watch his college tape, flip on a random game middle of last season. And I'm like 30 plays in and I just put my hands in my head like this. And where I'm at right now, I'm at my in-laws place. We're staying there until we move into our house that we got. And my wife so we're sharing a room. And so she's in the room too. And she's like, oh my God, baby, are you okay? And I'm like, I had a guy ranked top 75 on my board and he sucks. I don't know what I was watching, dude. I don't know what I did last spring when I was watching this guy's tape that I had him that highly, but I just had to get that off my chest because we all swing and miss sometimes, but it's why you need checks and balances when you're watching the tape. And that's why I'm lucky to have you guys keeping me in order here. But let's get to some of the cutdowns, because that guy played for a team that we're going to be talking about here. What were your biggest reactions from Cutdown Day and the players we saw moved here, JP?
I think the biggest takeaway that I had was the Minnesota Vikings keeping 7 undrafted free agents out of their 53-man roster. That's 13% of their roster being current UDFAs. And I'm not sure what the numbers are on that for every other NFL team, but that seems high for a roster with Super Bowl expectations. On top of that, have a new essentially a rookie quarterback playing in his first year, along with the undrafted free agents, along with just how thin they are at corner. It feels like this is going to have to be a coaching masterclass by Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores to get this team to where they want to be, because I'm not going to say the Vikings roster is bad. I don't think it's bad by any means, but there is an argument that it's a little top heavy and it's reliant on a lot of veterans, including guys like Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, being healthy. It requires all these veterans to stay healthy over the course of a 17-game season. So I'm just intrigued by what the Vikings are doing, because I'm not going to say quietly, they are one of the most interesting teams in the NFL this year.
Dude, it feels like to me that when you point that out, it makes me think about what other teams have a very top-heavy star roster, and then they're filling in the blanks at 50% of the other ones. And when I think Vikings, I think about the superstars. You know what I'm saying? I think about the tackles that they've got and how much money goes into those guys. And then it's like, well, how does Kevin O'Connell fill out the rest of the roster? 7 undrafted free agents on the roster. Good math there, 13%. That's an interesting nugget there. And I wonder what other teams have that kind of dynamic and which don't, which have the opposite.
I don't think any other team has that many. That was the most of anyone this year. And kind of the underrated thing that I'm hearing here and that I've been tracking for a while now is Kwesi is the GM of the Minnesota Vikings, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. He's venturing into Trent Baalke-ish territory, if you will. If you remember, Trent Baalke inherited pretty much every superstar on that 49ers team that went to the Super Bowl. And he had the advent of a lights-out head coach, a lights-out DC. He had one of the best coaching staffs in the NFL, inherited a lot. The stars on this team were not drafted by Kwesi. Rick Spielman loaded up this roster. And yeah, I think the head coaching position that Rick had when he was GM, our former colleague at CBS, was part of the reason they were let down. He struggled to fill out the roster as well. Kwesi has not drafted well. If you go back through his drafts, his first draft was one of the worst drafts truly in the history of the NFL. Lewis Dean, Andrew Booth, Ed Ingram, Brian Asamoah, Caleb Evans, not a player in the entire draft. Jalen Naylor, 6th rounder, probably the best pick of the entire draft, but it was not good. And since then, he's traded away some picks, but they do not have a lot of stars from recent. Jordan Addison, really probably the best player he's drafted under him. And obviously he's out the first 3 weeks of the season. So great in free agency, obviously great with coaching hires. Kwesi, at this point in time, the jury is still out on whether he, as a drafter, can really do enough to build a roster there in Minnesota that's championship caliber. My big takeaway is that, man, drafting quarterbacks is tough. The day 2 quarterbacks under assault here. Kyle Trask, former 2nd rounder of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, cut. Hendon Hooker, former 3rd rounder of the Detroit Lions, cut. Some other notable names: Kenyon Green, former 1st rounder of the Houston Texans, who was dealt this offseason. Eagles did not like what they saw from him. He's already out the door. And then Malachi Corley, probably I believe the highest drafted guy from the 2024 NFL draft, to already be out the door. Your 3rd rounder for the New York Jets that they were trying to trade up to get. He's already cut for New York when they needed wide receivers. I think the writing on the wall is Malachi Corley at this point, probably a running back, right? I'd move him to running back. Ty Montgomery career.
I feel like Malachi Corley was the whole, like, hey, he came into the NFL at the time where everybody was trying to recreate Deebo Samuel without realizing that there's only one of those guys. You can't really create that guy out of thin air. And I think Malachi Corley sort of struggled with, not really having a real route tree at Western Kentucky, adjusting to that at the NFL level. And also, like, if you're not going to be able to make this roster for the Jets, who don't have any legitimate receiving options, that is really rough at this stage of your career. I do think a Ty Montgomery move, even Cordero Patterson, if you can be Cordero Patterson and just win on special teams, that'd be great. But I do think that point on day 2 quarterbacks is so fascinating because, like, we're not really going to see a lot of the, like, Derek Carrs or a lot of the, like, Dak Prescotts or even Brock Purdy's, where you have this guy enter the draft and they fall all the way to day 2 or even day 3. And I think that's largely because, with the transfer portal, with name, image, and likeness at the college level, if you're not getting day 1 grades, you can just go back. You can get more money and develop and still try and find a way into day 1 of the draft. We've seen success stories like that at the first round of the NFL draft. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand, especially with quarterbacks. But it's so fascinating just looking at those guys, like how we talked about those guys entering the draft, especially Hendon Hooker, who I think benefited a lot from the Tennessee offense being, I kind of call it Mickey Mouse. It's babies first.
It is
college offense.
It's what people thought that Jaden Daniels was running in week 1 through 3. It was what DBs were talking about. What was the gentleman from the Cincinnati Bengals who said they run a nice college offense? It kind of feels like that. I heard KJ Wright talking about Hendon Hooker in college, and it felt like we were talking about the second coming of Patrick Mahomes or something. But this is the imperfect science, right? Like, the same reason why Kenyon Green's a 1st-round pick and just doesn't shake out, even with a guy like Jeff Stoutland. Like, it's just such an imperfect science, and it's wild.
I do think Tennessee offense. We talk about college offenses. There's no more. There's no more offense. Like, it is, and they kind of. If you're, obviously your job as college coach is to win ball games. And it wins ball games, dude. Like, wherever it's been run, it has been kind of successful, but it is not. You could have a jugs machine back there, and it's playing quarterback. Like, that's basically what it asks you to do. It's like, oh, hey, we got one guy running a route. He's running a go route. That's where you're throwing the ball, no matter what. It's just a crazy way to play quarterback, and lo and behold, not a lot of guys have gone from that offense to be actual high-level quarterbacks. I had some other interesting news that happened yesterday. I guess it didn't happen yesterday. It happened today. Adam Thielen back with the Vikings in a wild pick swap. I mean, just like It's like a fourth for a fifth. I'm not going to get into all the details, but it's 2 different day 2 pick swaps, day 3 pick swaps, excuse me.
A gentleman's deal.
Yes. Basically, Thielen wanted back in Minnesota. Minnesota wanted Thielen back in Minnesota. And the Panthers were like, hey, we like our trio of young wide receivers. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah, and I think this is such a big, like, I'm not going to say it's a big risk, but it's a big swing to take for the Panthers, especially with how young this receiving core is. If you have Jalen Coker stocks, invest in them. If you still hold on to Jalen Coker stocks, hold on to him, because this guy is going to take that place of Adam Thielen in the offense. But it's such a fascinating swing to take for a team that is seen as on the rise, especially offensively, to trade your most experienced, and not only most experienced, but arguably your best receiver last year back to Minnesota. But I think it's a bet that they're needing to take with how much youth they have on the roster at receiver to actually figure out what they have and what they don't have.
I love the move for both sides, and I love the way that you just painted that picture. They traded away a star player, but they're going to benefit in the long run. They're getting younger. I mean, me and Adam Thielen are pretty much the same age. I can only imagine what he feels like running around trying to play Superman in Charlotte. He gets to go home. He gets to play for Kevin O'Connell. And if you listen to the Kay Adams, Kevin O'Connell interview, I think it was last week she was at camp, it was obvious. He couldn't hide it with the nonverbals in his face that he was like, yeah, we're bringing Adam Thielen home pretty much. She asked him straight up, like, Adam Thielen's available. And then he just kind of waxed poetic about how proud he is of, the experience he's had in Carolina and how he's still having success. You kind of knew this was going to happen. Question marks with Justin Jefferson, Addison, legal issues. You're going to need a guy like Adam Thielen if you want things to go smoothly in your offense.
And speaking of the Adam Thielen trade, I wanted to talk about this last thing here, because one of the first people to break the Adam Thielen trade was a man on X known as Ricky Scoops. And if you've followed or seen his tweets at all, he has a lot of hits. This guy is no one knows who he is, but he is an insider. And like I said, was one of the first to break the Adam Thielen trade. And last night tweeted out, the Packers have a trade on the table with the Cowboys for Micah Parsons with a new contract worth $45 million.
This is the same guy.
It's the same guy.
Which makes me think it's going to be real.
He definitely knows something. He's had a few swings and misses over the years. He's been like early on stuff that ended up not coming to fruition. But it's like we've had a lot of insiders miss stuff too. It's not like their hit rates are all 100%.
Oh yeah.
So this is interesting.
They get fed. The insiders get fed bait too. Our buddy's Jonathan Jones, who's on this show. It's CBS's lead NFL insider, and yeah, I mean he hits a lot of home runs, but at the same time, you can only imagine how many dead ends this guy has to walk. Like a day in his shoes, you're going a marathon's distance of BS. And for this guy, Ricky Scoops, good on him. I like anonymity in this department because what's my gripe about some of these insiders? They think they're bigger than the game. Ricky Scoops is like, you can't even see my face. I don't have a real name. Government name? Pfft. You can just take the stories and retweets, and that's about it. I respect this guy's gangster, dude.
I think instead of most insiders, what we should do is we should just have players show up on new teams, like pro wrestling. Just have them run out the tunnel. Like
that's Stone Cold's music.
That's Stone Cold's music. And here it is, Micah Parsons running out in the Packers jersey. Jerry Jones is the only person I know that could see the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift engagement and go, you know what? I'm one-upping it.
Wow.
I have to take the content wave back. I have to be the center of attention. And like, yeah, let's see if the Packers really want to do this. It would be so stupid. It would be so stupid for the Cowboys to trade Micah Parsons. But in some ways, I feel like Jerry Jones is petty enough to where, okay, I want to remain the center of content. I want to remain the content machine in the NFL. Let's go ahead and do it.
Well, here's the thing. If you don't want the Eagles to repeat, this might be your best opportunity to not let the Eagles repeat. Honestly, I haven't been able to stop thinking about this. It's like consumed my brain, the thought of Micah Parsons on this team, because if there's one thing I worry about with this Packers team that doesn't get them over the edge, it's how do they get pressure on Jalen Hurts? How do they get pressure on these quarterbacks? They didn't have it last year. you get Micah Parsons, he's getting pressure on anybody. No one's taking Micah Parsons one-on-one. He is that kind of guy that if you can make a swing like this, and if he really is available, yeah, I'm all in with the Green Bay Packers in this roster they have right now. I say go for it. So
this is the Khalil Mack trade in 2018, dude.
Mhm.
This is like instant juice. This is like putting your entire defense on PEDs and arming them with samurai blades and saying, okay, we got a couple questions defensively, but this guy's got some answers. I mean, I've seen these guys show up without breaking a sweat all spring, all summer. And when I say these guys, I'm talking about the elite level pass rusher, football player, defensive style guy. They can show up and just see ball and get ball. And I'll tell you what, if Micah Parsons gets an opportunity to reintroduce himself to a new fan base and have the slightest bit of doubt that everybody knows about him, he could have 6 sacks in one game. That's just the kind of talent that he has. And for the Green Bay Packers to get that, allegedly, I'm going to have to I need my therapist's number again.
And it makes so much sense for the Packers because with Micah Parsons on the team, everybody else on the defensive line gets to slide down a role. It's like how a star NBA player, like I think the best example would be like Kawhi Leonard being traded to the Raptors. Everybody else on that team moves down a specific role, but it makes them better in like a minimized volume output. So Rashawn Gary gets better because he's not seeing as many double teams. You have guys like Kenny Clark who are able to win in more isolated matchups. You can do so much with the pass rush games that Jeff Hafley broke out in the second half of the season that helped him kind of refine that juice. But the thing with Micah Parsons is you can play games with him, especially as a looper, as a crasher on these stunts. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down with the game on the line, you have a guy who can win in those situations.
I'm just going to be daydreaming.
I hate you, Mike. I hate
Edgerrin Cooper and Micah Parsons walked up, just roaming, looking at Caleb Williams, knowing that it's just he's in trouble.
You don't think a guy like Micah Parsons is going to help a guy like Rashawn Gary put together the athletic, the iceberg of athleticism that is under the surface and yet to reveal itself? I mean, when I saw Rashawn Gary come off the rock with that dip and drive, you know exactly what I'm talking about, boys, off the edge. He hits that little dip. It's like the Frank Clark dip almost, okay? It's scary. If he can tie that into some good stuff, he should be a guy with double-digit sacks too, especially if he gets the opportunity to play next to or across from or in front of on the loopers type stuff. The Leonard, I call it the spinner looks. If Micah's that guy, everybody else eats. I think it's I hate to say it, it would be the cherry on top for this Packers operation.
You can keep going if you want, Kyle. This isn't getting old for me. So if you want to keep talking about,
I'm just talking about possibilities. You add a weapon, and everybody else gets more dangerous. It's just the way things go.
I'm just messing with you. All right, there you have it. Our first off the ball segment. We're going to get to JP's Super Bowl contenders coming up right after this.
Here we go. The 2025 CBS Sports NFL schedule is here. 18 glorious Sundays.
He's got his receiver touchdown.
Filled with rematches.
Oh, the play of the year.
And rivalries.
Touchdown, Bengals.
Plus, plenty of superstar showdowns. And an epic matchup between the Chiefs and Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Clear your Sundays beginning September 7th for the NFL on CBS and Paramount+.
All right, the tiers are that we're getting to: top 5 pick, sub 500, Purgatory, which is your on the borderline of making the playoffs, but not making the playoffs, your playoff contenders, your contenders, your real Super Bowl contenders, and then your favorites, the teams that, well, they should be the ones taking home the Lombardi when it's all said and done. So let's kick it off with your top 5 picks. Who do you see in that realm this year, JP?
I mean, we got to start off with the obvious. We got to start with the Cleveland Browns. What else can you say about the Browns that isn't like, let's hope the Jaguars stink so you get 2 top 10 picks?
Yep.
The next one, I have the New Orleans Saints. I just don't trust.
Shockies. These are easy.
Yeah, the back and forth with their offense, especially a quarterback. I have the Tennessee Titans here. And I like Cam Ward. I like what he might be in the offense, but they're still a couple of pieces away on both sides of the ball. I have the Jets here. I think they're going to be physical. I think they're going to be tough. I just worry about the quarterback. And then my last one, I actually have the Colts. I have the Colts here because just everything surrounding this situation with the quarterbacks, with the offense, it just feels like this team is headed towards disaster.
The first three on that list, to me, that's like if you asked 100 NFL analysts, that would be those ones are cash those checks already. Unfortunately, they just with Cam Ward, I think we all believe in Cam Ward, but they shot their shot last year in free agency. They didn't add pieces. It's just unfortunately all the money they spent last offseason went for naught. Those guys stunk for that team, and they don't look like they're coming back this year getting better because they all got hurt too. So they're just kind of in a tough spot right now.
And the Callahan coaching situation isn't necessarily a world-beating coaching situation either. I understand that Coach Callahan is one of, if not, depending on who you ask, the best offensive line coach in the history of football. But you, me, and JP, we all know that there's a lot more that goes into it than that. And I understand that Callahan grew up around it. But you got more issues than just we've got a good quarterback and we don't have enough pieces.
But then it's after that where, to me, it gets very interesting. And I think you'll just get a lot of different answers. And like ultimately what it probably ends up being is the team whose quarterback gets hurt in like week 3, right? And they're starting a backup all season. Like that's kind of how it ends up going, or just the roster gets decimated and they just can't overcome it. But I want to hear why you think the Colts, because the Colts have not exactly had a great quarterback situation the last 2 years and have gone 9-8. I believe both those years. So why do we see this bottoming out from Indy?
This just feels like the year it kind of falls off, the wheels fall off, especially for the offense. I like their offensive line, but they're starting 2 new starters at guard and center. The receiver room, it's inconsistent. That's my biggest issue with the Colts receiver room. They are all inconsistent and they are all specialists, but they don't have the one guy who can like win in like any situation. AD Mitchell was supposed to be that guy. It still feels like he's maybe a year or 2 away. Like in a way, he is sort of the Anthony Richardson of the Colts receiver room.
Dude, he is. That's a great point.
And then I just don't have a lot of faith in the offense, despite having what could be a fun run game. I think the passing game is going to fall out, even though I think Tyler Warren's fun. But I think there's just too much negativity around the Colts right now. And, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I think just everything around the general vibes of this team feels really off. So that's why I had him there.
That's fair. This is part of the curse of the Bambino, the Andrew Luck Bino. I feel like this is part of just the bad juju that's left over after Andrew Luck left. We just got to get through this, guys. If you're a Colts fan, just listen to that guy who says, this is our Colts, this is our team, and just get through it. It's going to be tough. I mean, we're all going to root for Daniel Jones. Tyler Warren is going to be fun. He's going to get the hell beat out of him this year because everybody's going to be looking at him just based on his volume in college, right? Like, he's going to get the football. It's going to be tough sledding for the Colts.
I'm a little more bullish. I think the defensive turnaround's real. I think that the additions and even some young guys they have like Nick Cross, Laiatu Latu, I think they're going to be players this year that I think they end up honestly back in that 9-8 kick. I think there's like under Shane Steichen, they're just destined to be the team that's in purgatory every single year. Unfortunately, the Jets we don't have to go into too much. They've had top 5 picks in 4 of the last 8 drafts. We don't need to say why we think the Jets would probably bottom out. That just unfortunately is par for the course if you're a Jets fan. All right, sub 500 teams. Who you got?
This was the first team that I really debated wanting to put in top 5 pick, but I just think they're too talented on one side of the ball, and that's the Miami Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are really, really close to just completely falling apart, and it might fall apart this year, but I think their pass rush, I think their defensive line is going to be nasty this year if everybody's healthy. I think the offense, if Tyreek Hill is healthy, can still be really fun. But again, you're asking a lot of ifs, which is why I said this team is the biggest hypothetical in the NFL. Like if everything goes right, then maybe this team is fun. But when has anything ever gone right for the Dolphins, So that's the first team. Next one I have is the Carolina Panthers. I I want to believe. I think the offense is going to take a step forward. The defense, I still think, is maybe a couple years away. The Cowboys is next one. Just it is, especially if Micah Parsons does not play. This is going to get really bad. I think they're going to be competitive, but I don't think it's going to be like.
And if George's.
Yeah, if George Pickens is.
He's kind of
George Pickens is, then.
Ski mask on in front of the plasma screen.
Yeah, this team is going to completely fall apart. The next one I have is the Giants, because I think they're going to be.
Wow.
I think they're going to be competitive bad. And I think there's a difference between like bad and competitive bad, where they're going to put up a fight in a lot of games. Until you figure out what you're doing at quarterback, we'll see what happens. And then the last one, I really am struggling with this team, and that's the New England Patriots. I want this team to be good so bad, because I think this team has the bones of being good, but I still want to see Stephon Diggs in action in like real game time, because as we've said before, it's tough for 30-year-old receivers coming back off of major knee injuries. We have yet to see that. I think their offensive line is still coming along, although they have gotten much more physical there. But I think they are also going to be a competitive bad.
Yeah,
you go first, Mike.
I couldn't believe they gave Diggs the contract they did. Like, they obviously spent a lot of money in this roster, and I love what they did defensively. I think that's where you see the biggest gains on this team. Wide receiver still not like there, though, for New England. It's not where it needs to be for Drake May to play at the level you need him to play to get to like a Super Bowl. Like I said, you're not making it through the AFC anytime soon with that group of receivers that they have. But I just think their schedule is so easy. The East is the more interesting one to me, because you have two teams in the NFC East, the Giants and the Cowboys. I think someone from the NFC East is either one team from the NFC East really bottoms out, because it's just too tough. You can't play the AFC West. You can't play that division and have all four teams be double-digit win sort of team. So it ain't going to happen. So I think either we see one of someone not named the Eagles, really bottoms out, or two teams not named the Eagles both go below 500 and have really disappointing seasons. So the East is going to be interesting to watch, just because every single week it seems like those teams are going to have to bring in their A game, or else they're liable to lose every single week seemingly.
And the Giants.
Go ahead, JP.
Giants have a really tough schedule through the first 8 weeks of the season. They start with the Commanders, they play the Cowboys, then they have a Sunday night game against the Chiefs, then they play the Chargers. They have 2 games against the Eagles, the Broncos, and then the Niners through like the first 8-9 games of the season. That is a brutal schedule. So you don't know when exactly the Jackson Dart on-ramp is. My guess is maybe the Saints week 5, but this schedule does not really shape up for them to really get off to a good start. And that's what you really worry about, especially when you said like one of these teams has got to bottom out. The Giants' schedule is really tough.
Both of these teams are so much fun. And to your point, I'm going to be rude. I've never in my life been like, I'm going to root for the Patriots, except for when my brother was on the team. But I really like Drake May. And as a football player that enjoys, maybe in the future being a coach, Mike Vrabel's a guy that is like the beacon of hope in the distance. So, of course, I'm going to cheer for the Patriots, and his infusion of toughness is big. And I think if you look at the wide receiver room, the final 53, if you look at the wide receiver room, it's kind of a microcosm of the entire team. Okay. There's this misfit bunch of bandits that have been put together. Guys like Mac Hollins, who are giving you instructions on TikTok on how to take Band-Aids off. Just Demario Douglas was talking about, I know you guys are used to the vanilla, but like, I hope you like what we're going to get this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm rooting for that. There's character, there's comedy, there's storylines to follow there. This was a team that last year wasn't even good enough for fans to say, put Drake May on the field. Now we're like, they can compete and be in that 500. You have them sub 500. I think with Mike Vrabel, they turn those one-score games into wins. They turn those kind of head scratchers into how the hell did we win that game? And that's why you hire Mike Vrabel. I think that stuff's important. And the Giants, look, their D-line's going to happen every game. It's going to be dirty and disgusting and downright, in the muck. But it's D-line play, and that's why you sign these guys, and that's why you invest big money in draft capital on the front seven.
Let's get to Purgatory. Who are the teams that are going to end up in Purgatory yet again this year?
Well, I feel like we got to start with the most purgatory team in the NFL, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel like this is just like
they are.
We're circling the 9-8 drain for the Steelers right now.
They're doing that thing that the Colts did for a while when they're in Purgatory. It's like, hey, let's try a different quarterback every year for 4 straight years and see if that's the problem.
Yeah, we'll keep just putting the Band-Aid over and see what happens. The next one, it kind of hurt me to put them here. I put the Chargers. With Rashawn Slater being out for the year and just the uncertainty at the receiver spot outside of Ladd McConkey, it just feels like there are a lot of questions with the Chargers offense. I also put the Raiders because I think the Raiders offense is going to be sick. Defense is going to be there for the ride. And they also have a really tough schedule for being a last place team. I put the Jaguars here. Again, I am emotionally hedging for the Jaguars because I think this team is going to be good, but I really don't know. And I don't want to go in saying this team's going to make the playoffs and then they go 4-13 again. I also put the Bengals in Purgatory because
it feels like it, right?
It feels like this is a Purgatory team. They might have the best offense in the NFL, but this defense, even with Trey Hendrickson, still going to have a lot of problems. And then the next teams I have on here are the Seahawks because I love the idea, but I need to see Sam Darnold in action with this team.
Outside.
And then the one that really got close for me was the 49ers because the 49ers had the benefit of the last place schedule. They have a really, really easy schedule and are going to get some positive injury regression back, but they're counting on a lot of guys in new spots, a lot of youth, especially on the defensive side. And the receiver room is never, ever healthy. So you pair that receiver room that's never healthy with Christian McCaffrey, who might give you maybe 12 games fully healthy. I don't know. I really don't know, but the schedule's easy. So I could see them making a run.
I do think a lot of people just see the stars in San Francisco and be like, Brock's there, McCaffrey's there, Kittle's there, Bosa's there. It's the Super Bowl team. And I think one of the highlights of that Super Bowl team was they had a lot of very good, I don't even want to call them role players, but their second tier of stars was great. Eric Armstead was a great player for that team. Javon Hargrave was a great player. Charvarius Ward was a great player for that team. There were players who were great players. They're not stars, but to win a Super Bowl, you can't. Stars and Scrubs model worked with the Rams. They did have some big holes on that team, but their stars were legitimately, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald were the best players of their position at that time. And you had Matt Stafford who could go unconscious in a way that Brock Purdy just can't. So I'm with you on the 49ers. And yeah, they have an easy schedule, but it's I just think they're not that good of a team. Kyle Shanahan is really going to have to do one of his best coaching jobs ever. And as we've seen, he's had years where they went to the Super Bowl, 2 of them. They've had years where they stunk too. Injuries have struck and they've just not been good. I think there's a chance that this is just another one of those years. If you get one key injury go wrong, like Nick Bosa's out there, this defense isn't going to be good if he gets hurt. If Christian McCaffrey's hurt again, this offense isn't going to be that good. So I do think they're very volatile, even with an easy schedule.
I will never forgive Kyle Shanahan for not having even his Harvard fullback prepared for the overtime rules in the NFL in the Super Bowl. I will never forget. And this was against my guy, Pat. I mean, these are my guys, Pat and Trav. I'll never forgive Kyle Shanahan. There's certain things that are in your control. There's certain things that are out of your control. Some of the things that are out of your control, the health, all that kind of stuff, the weather, you can control being ready for the moment. And that was just kind of a non sequitur, but it just reminds me oh my God, can you imagine not knowing the rules of the Super Bowl?
The other team I want to touch on, Cincinnati Bengals, because when you're that good offensively And I think they're just going to be that good offensively. I think they're back. I think they're back to Super Bowl contenders. And I think the slow start that did them in last year, because they were on the doorstep. They beat the Patriots. They were in last year. They beat the Patriots week 1. Rest of their schedule down the stretch, they would have been in. Everyone is now happy. Trey Hendrickson, obviously not as happy as you probably should have made him, but he's at least going to play for you. With that all in place, yeah, the defense is going to stink. But I think it was a mismatch of talent and coordinator last year. I think they don't completely bottom out under Al Golden because there's talent there. They just are not – it's not smart in the back end. They don't have savvy football players. And what Al Golden did at Notre Dame, at least, I don't know what he's going to do in the NFL, but it was a lot more simplistic. It was a lot more just like, hey, we got guys. Yeah, we have guys. We're going to let our guys go.
I love that.
And I think that fits the Bengals better.
As a dumb player, give me less. Give me less because I got more physically. Like you let your guy, less is more is what my old man used to tell me. And when I started to employ that train of thought in football, it was great. I've never played DB, but you're on an island at corner, and it probably feels a little bit like tackle. You feel like maybe these guys have the advantage. I just say just follow them as long as you can and let the big dog up front go eat. Trey Hendrickson. That's why they pay him so much money. Al Golden's like, if they ain't that.
I think we may have lost Kyle. All right. Well, there was our purgatory. Kyle's probably had a great.
He got lost in purgatory.
It's a great screenshot there of Kyle. Unfortunately. All right. There's our purgatory, though. We're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes here. Who's going to make the playoffs? Who are the real contenders? And then who is the favorite to win it all this year? Coming up next.
You can't count on Derek's tong skills.
Oh, Tony, I think it hit the ground.
But you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
All right, JP. Who are the playoff contenders? Not contenders, but these teams are firmly in the playoff mix.
The first team I really want to shout out is a team that I think is going to be good this year, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. I am so irrationally excited for this team, and I think it starts on the defensive side of the ball. I've spoken ad nauseum about how much I love this defense schematically. I love what they do with their secondary, and now that Will Johnson is entrenched as the starting corner outside of Max Melton, you have a secondary of Will Johnson, Max Melton, Garrett Williams, Budda Baker, and Jalen Thompson. That's a damn good secondary. And you add up front that you've added size. You've added some beef up front. You get Darius Robinson back. I feel like this defense is going to be a sneaky top 10 unit. I think they're going to flirt with that area defensively. Offensively, I love what they do running the ball. I love what they do, especially with mixing in Trey Benson and James Conner. Really, the biggest question is, do you have enough at receiver? Does Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr., does that connection work? And if they can get that working, I don't see any reason why they can't be a playoff team. This team is really talented, and I'm excited to see them kind of make this jump that they're getting ready to make. The next team, Denver Broncos. This defense is going to be incredible again. I still worry a little bit about just some of the others in that receiving room. And again, worry a little bit that they're becoming like the Colts, where it's full of like specialists, but no guy for real. But with Sean Payton as your play caller, you're going to get a whole lot wider of a margin for error. Then the Texans, I was really close to putting the Texans and the Jaguars both in purgatory because I think they're going to be in like a dogfight for winning the AFC South. But when you have arguably one of the best defenses in the NFL, that's going to get you a really long way. And that defense is going to be incredible. They play with the same intensity, the same vision as the old DeMeco Ryans defenses in San Francisco. And you have two legit pass rushers and Will Anderson Jr. and Daniil Hunter. That team's going to be awesome defensively. And then my last two, I have the Chicago Bears as a playoff team. I tried looking for reasons to not say the Bears aren't a playoff team other than they're the Bears. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's see it happen. Let's make it happen. And then my last one, I'm going to be a little bit bold here. I'm putting the Atlanta Falcons back in the playoffs. This offense is going to be incredibly explosive. And I think they are going to kind of try and do the same thing the Raiders are, where they're just going to try and get by with pass rush by committee. But if Michael Penix Jr. is anything like he was last year, that offense is going to put up a lot of points.
I love this list.
I'm with you on the Cardinals in that they are one of the most intriguing teams to me because so many reasons. One is because I think the West has the most parity of any division in football. You know, from the best team in the division, the difference between the best team and the worst team in the division is like it's split in hairs, truthfully. I mean, the Seahawks could go 7-10, the Seahawks could go 12-5. Like that's how I feel about pretty much every team in that division. But I just want to see what this defense looks like because they didn't play man coverage last year because you couldn't. When you can't rush the passer, you can't play man coverage. You're going to give guys all day to run routes. So they didn't last year. One of the zone heaviest teams in the NFL. They kind of got man corners now. They kind of got guys that can play that, and they have the pass rush up front to do it. So you're going to just see a lot more at Gannon's disposal. And I think with how much they overachieved with no talent, well, then what are they going to do when they actually have talent? And I think they actually have talent. But I think you may have undersold a couple teams on this list. We're going to get to your contenders, but I would put the Broncos and Texans as bigger contenders this year than at least a few teams you have in your contender list because they might be the two best defenses in the NFL. Yeah, offensively, big questions. They could be rank average offenses this year and would not surprise me. But there's two ways to win, and they're so good at one of those ways to win that I think if you just have, franchise quarterbacks, you have a guy who can go get you buckets, and I think Texans for sure do. Broncos very well could this year. I think that can get you in the dance. That can get you, sneak you through to a championship game if they catch it right.
Yeah, I think the Broncos and the Texans were two where I'm like, I want to believe, especially with the Texans, because from top to bottom, the Texans defense is so good. And now that they kind of have some stability at linebacker with Azeez Al-Shaair and Henry To'oTo'o kind of locking down those two roles, they have range, they have the quickness. And I think we're going to get a big year from Kalen Bullock, who just seemingly finds his way into overs so often. Kamari Lassiter another year.
Perfect for that defense.
Oh, yeah. I'm just terrified of that offensive line. I'm so worried that this offensive line is just going to not be the same and not even be the same. I think I'm worried about it getting worse. But like you said, when you have force multipliers, when you have guys like CJ Stroud and Nico Collins who make any offense better by just throwing every single glance and dig and post route available, you're going to get really far. And then with the Broncos, again, I think they have one of the biggest floor raisers in the NFL, thanks to Sean Payton and how he calls that offense and that offensive line. So I don't think that offense is going to bottom out. Even if they're an average offense, they're going to make the playoffs because that defense is going to be insane. But I do want to see some more from this receiver room before I can fully lock them in as contenders.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of across the board. I would compare their tackles are kind of a representation of the team. They're good in the run game. They're salty. They're tough players. And that's kind of how the Broncos win. You talk about the defense, and I think the impressive thing is the steps Bo Nix took under Sean Payton's tutelage. And we can all speak all day about Sean Payton and the way he can gear up a run game and get guys open. But I think that Bo Nix's year 2 step will be huge. And I think that this could be a team that's on a different tier next year, obviously, because of their defense and their development. I love what you said about the Bears. I think the same thing about the Bears I do the Falcons offense, notwithstanding the Michael Penix comparisons, because they're two different quarterbacks. But at every level of the field, everywhere you look, there's a different weapon that's designed to be in that part of the field. A guy like Luther Burden falling to the Bears is massive. And the ability for them to have 3 receivers on the field at any given time, and maybe 4 if they've got DJ Moore lined up in the backfield, which we've heard whispers of from Hallis Hall, which could be interesting. Look, I mean, let's face it. We throw him the ball at the line of scrimmage, and he becomes a running back out there. It's an extension of the run game, which is what I've heard my entire career as an O-lineman. The Bears will be dangerous. I have a big concern about the Bears, and it's not left tackle. My concern is their ability to get home in the pass rush department.
Yeah.
My concern is the 40, 60, $80 million contracts that are turning into 1.5, 3, and 5 sacks. At what point are you going to cash in on the fact that you've got a beast secondary and you've got guys on the back end who inflict fear in your opponents? This is where the defensive front is supposed to get after the quarterbacks if they can find a way to get pressure, whether it's with 4 or whether it's with manufacturing pressure from the second level. I fully see this team being able to make the playoffs. If they don't get that figured out, we saw what Patrick Mahomes looked like with time. And there are a lot of quarterbacks who are going to stand back there with time and make you bleed.
And I think for the Bears, especially, I do think the pass rush could see an uptick because having Dennis Allen as defensive coordinator is going to help raise that floor a little bit. But I do agree there because they're probably going to play a lot more man coverage. And if you're going to play a lot more man coverage, you need that pass rush to get home. This is when you, like you said, this is why you pay Montez Sweat. This is why you go out and get Grady Jarrett. This is why you've drafted so much and put so much into the defensive line for these games, for these teams to go and win in the pass rush department.
And plus, 6 games against 3 top 10 O-lines. You know, I think if you're ranking the offensive lines, the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, you're putting them all in the top 10.
I just did that yesterday. They are all in there.
And that's
shout out Jordan Morgan.
Dude, did he get the starting job? I haven't looked yet, but
I just have followed him since his draft profile. I was his comp. And I was like, first off, I'm invited to the barbecue. Second off, turns out I'm a better tackle than I thought.
We'll see if he makes it, but those O-lines that are going up against, not just willingly giving up pressures. All right, here it is. Moment you've all been waiting for. The initial contenders list, not the favorites. I think we all know who the favorites are, but the contenders. Who has a real shot of taking home the Lombardi? I'm
going to start with the Green Bay Packers. Especially, like, they could be in favorites if Ricky is correct. If Micah Parsons ends up a Green Bay Packer, they are one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. But the offense has biggest floor raisers. They have a great quarterback. Defense is able to create chaos. They're going to be a contender to win the Super Bowl. I have the Commanders here. This was the team I was the most hesitant about with contenders. But getting Terry McLaurin back in this offense, you still have one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the NFL just by sheer volume of throwing the ball downfield. And then the next team I have is the Minnesota Vikings. I know, like we said, kind of a top-heavy roster, a lot of questions, new quarterback, but they have 2 of the biggest floor raisers in terms of coaching in the NFL right now with Brian Flores and Kevin O'Connell. And their defensive line, if Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen are healthy, is going to be really cool to watch. Next team I have is the Detroit Lions. That was another team where I'm like, I kind of think favorite, but contender is where I'm going to put them now just because I'm kind of hedging against like the brain drain of losing both coordinators and Frank Ragnow, but that team is still incredibly talented. You're going to get some positive regression defensively from all the injuries. And then I have the Rams pending Matthew Stafford's time in the immortal chamber being useful and him coming back healthy. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rounds out the contenders. I love how this offense runs. I know they lost Liam Cohen, but they promoted from within. I think that if you get Tristan Wirfs back healthy, Chris Godwin is going to be out, which sucks, but you drafted Buka, Jalen McMillan. They have arguably one of the deeper receiver cores in the NFL. And then defensively, you have so much more talent on this team defensively. It should be able to win in pass rush. Coverage should be able to stay a little bit tied together better. But again, when you have Todd Bowles calling plays defensively, you're gonna be a good defense.
Oh, so you mentioned Matt Stafford in the immortality chamber. I actually found a picture of him and Stetson Bennett leaving the facility this offseason during
Dude, his teeth were in the immortality chamber. Have you seen Stafford's grill? He got a brand new set.
Yeah. That will be all that they will find in 20,000 years. Matt Stafford's teeth, Lane Johnson's teeth, just a couple of guys out there.
What I'm hearing, though, is you think there's a lot of teams. So obviously Eagles and the favorites, but this is an all NFC contenders list. You think a lot of teams have a shot if bounces go their way of, obviously the Eagles are the favorites, but like if someone knocks them off, it's pretty much open season. It could be anyone in the NFC is what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes to what I've thought about the NFC versus the AFC, where if we're ranking Super Bowl contenders, 3 of the top 5 are probably from the AFC. But if you expand it to top 10 or top 12, a large majority of them are going to be in the NFC, because the NFC has, I would say they have a whole bunch of really good teams and teams that can really catch fire. And if those teams catch fire, they can win the Super Bowl. Whereas with the AFC, they have 3 legit contenders and teams that I think are good but have major question marks.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I said I'd probably bump the Broncos Texans up, who I'd probably take out. Vikings, just first-year quarterback, winning Super Bowl. I think it's going to be tough. And like you said, top-heavy roster. You get one wrong injury, that team is toast like they were last year when Christian Darrisaw went out, unfortunately. And then
Commanders too. Get them out of here. Get them out of here, JP.
Oh, you were saying the Commanders? I was saying the Rams.
I'm saying one score games. You're not going to win 7 of the. What did you say? 7 of the 10 games that they won, or they were trailing with like 1 minute left. Okay, not everything is a Paramount Plus film. Okay, year 2, we're coming back down to reality. Okay, for what they did to the Chicago Bears on the Phil Mary.
And
that's pure jadedness. That's all I hear.
And some of the volatility for that defense, I'm sure it'll come down, but that is also a Dan Quinn defense. They are going to be reliant on big plays, and it's probably going to come back to bite them this year. I mean, at least much more than it did last year, but I just think having continuity with that offense, bringing back Terry McLaurin, having Jaden Daniels, having Cliff Kingsbury back, and they're continuing to add elements to that offense, I think they're still going to be a contender, but I'm concerned a little bit about the defense.
All right, let's get to those favorites. 3 AFC, 1 NFC. Who you got?
Well, the 1 NFC, it's the Eagles. If we're ranking Super Bowl favorites, they are number 1 because they brought everybody back. Next one is the Baltimore Ravens. I would argue they are right up there with the Eagles in terms of roster talent. They are one of the most loaded rosters, if not the most loaded roster in the NFL, just from top to bottom at every position. They have dudes everywhere. And when you add a guy like Jair Alexander, who could potentially, if he's healthy, make this defense much more versatile. You can move Marlon Humphrey back to the slot. You have Malachi Starks kind of filling Darius Washington's role. The offense is going to once again be face melting, especially now that you have 3 or 4 legit running backs that can be in the game at any time. I have the Chiefs here, although this was the team there. Maybe this is the year it doesn't happen. But again, if you have Mahomes, Reed, Spags, Chris Jones, I'm still going to call you a favorite, because at the end of the day, you're still probably have to go through Arrowhead to make the Super Bowl. And then the Bills, although I have questions about the sustainability of the Bills defense, I think they're continuing to add layers to the offense. And again, it's just the continuity of keeping your quarterback, keeping the offensive line intact, keeping the offensive coordinator around. That continuity is going to get them far.
Yeah, I see it as 2 favorites, honestly. I think it's Eagles, Ravens, and then I'd even just bump both the Chiefs and the Bills down, unfortunately, to contenders, because I think the biggest part that makes them contenders is that the AFC is so top heavy. Like the last team getting in the AFC is not going to be any of the 2-3 seeds, I don't think. Like the wild card teams in the AFC aren't going to be real threats. Whereas the wild cards in the NFC, I think, could still be real threats. Like your wild card team could be a damn good team in the NFC. So that's the only thing keeping them as favorites, is because there really is a triumvirate where everyone after that has much bigger questions. But to me, Eagles and Ravens, those rosters, top to bottom, are the class of their respective conferences. And everyone else is kind of nipping at their heels this year, in my opinion.
This is Game of Thrones. Okay, so the favorites, the Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, those are the families from like the major family groups that would be there at a major royal wedding in Game of Thrones. And the Eagles at this point in time, Howie Roseman is Lannister, the elder statesman for the Lannisters. And somebody's got to break the wheel here. And you say you might bump the Chiefs back into the contenders list. I would say just put the favorites as Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bills, and here's the one that gets me. The Bucs need their own category, in my opinion. The Bucs are like, there's contenders and then there's spicy contenders. Okay, that's who the Bucs are, in my opinion, because they're playing greatest show on turf offense. Okay, they're just gonna be slinging that thing around. So many options.
It's good team who has easy schedule. It's like the Bucs path. It's like they could get the 1 seed. They might not be better than the Eagles. They might not be better than the Lions, but by virtue of their schedule and their division, they could go 14 wins and get a home game, and a bye. Like that home game and a bye, you are the favorite in that conference, like it or not. So,
and even if they go on the road, they kick the asses of some elite football teams on the road. Recent memory. Like this is no tall task. This is no task that's impossible.
And you have a defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles, who has shown in a 1-game sample size, he can make any offense day living hell. Like we have seen him put the Eagles into a blender multiple times. There's so many things that they can do on both sides of the ball. The biggest thing is if you can just hold on without Tristan Wirfs being in a lineup. If you can maintain until Wirfs gets back, they're going to be fine.
All right, that's our list of every contender in
Great
the
list.
NFL. We will be back tomorrow handing out some awards, and I will be sitting here the rest of the day refreshing Ricky Scoops' Twitter feed until he says that Micah Parsons
text me so I don't read it on Twitter, so I don't immediately react with a mean tweet or something. Just text me.
I'll call you. Don't worry, Kyle. You'll be hearing from me if Mike.
I'm going to pick my kid up from her first day of school. The drop off was great, so let's hope that
hopefully you get to break the good news.
Positive.
Gonna send
all right.
Screw you, Mike.
Micah Parsons in Packers jerseys.
Yes. Oh yeah, dude. I'll have AI create
the
most vile. I'll have AI create Micah Parsons bull rushing Kyle Long.
Oh god.
All right. That's our show for today. Back tomorrow. Until then, keep pushing.